Thanks for joining me. I'd like to talk to you about why is the price of gas so high? Is it a conspiracy by the oil companies? Is OPEC to blame? I checked yesterday and the median price of gas was $3.71 in my town. $3.71, which brings me to a discussion of the dollar. I have several dollars here I want to show you. Here's a Federal Reserve note. You see, $1. You're all familiar with those. Here's something that most of us have seen, or at least the older people have seen. Silvertip certificate, payable to the bearer on demand, $1 in silver. And here's something that's else, $1, $1 in silver, 1921 coin. So they're all dollars, but they're not all worth the same amount, obviously. Which would you rather have? Let me give you a brief history of money in this country. You know, during colonial times, the colonists issued what were known as continentals. Continentals were an unbacked fiat currency that the revolutionaries issued. It was legal for them to do so because there was no constitution at that time prohibiting it. But it was a disastrous experiment. It prompted George Washington to say in April of 1779, "A wagon load of money will scarcely purchase a wagon load of provisions." And the colonists were mindful of that when at the Constitutional Convention. And what they did was they did not grant the new central government the authority to print money. The United States Constitution says Congress shall have the power to coin money, not print it, coin money. It also says no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Just as a side note, recently the state of California couldn't pay its employees and they issued notes in payment that were redeemable at nothing at the time, but only with a future promise to pay dollars, Federal Reserve notes, when they got them. Completely illegal and unconstitutional, and nobody said a word. I cite no less an authority than Bancroft, who wrote the history of the formation of the Constitution of the United States, and he said this: "So the adoption of the Constitution is to be the end forever of paper money, whether issued by the several states or by the United States, if the Constitution shall be rightly interpreted and honestly obeyed." That was written before the Civil War. You've all seen the Old West movies where the good guy or the bad guy comes in and to the bar and throws a $20 gold piece onto the bar to pay for his drink. And that's what money was. Either $20 gold pieces or Spanish dollars, what they called pieces of 8. That all changed during the Civil War. The Union did not have the money to finance the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln authorized the issuance of U.S. notes to keep from borrowing the money. Eventually the U.S. notes lost about half their value, and it went to the Supreme Court to decide whether the central government had the authority to do that. And there was one justice, a man named Justice Fields. He was a good man and he had integrity and he wasn't willing to lie. And he said this in his dissenting opinion: "If there be anything in the history of the Constitution which can be established with a moral certainty, it is that the framers of that instrument intended to prohibit the issue of legal tender notes by the general government and by the states, and thus prevent interference with the contracts of private parties." So that was the death knell for the gold and silver standard. Although we were kept on a gold standard from 1879 to 1933, with the exception of the greenbacks. On April 5th, 1933, FDR made it illegal for Americans to own gold. Now the dollar was still backed by gold. Foreign governments could redeem it in gold, but Americans could not. But there was silver backing to the money, as you've seen with the silver certificates. In 1964, President Johnson, a Democrat, removed the silver backing of the money. Now let me tell you a story. I had a friend of mine, Jim Tabor. We were about 14 years old at the time, and he took a little copper penny and spread solder on it with a soldering iron and kind of tinted it and made it silver, looking like a dime. And he used to take those copper pennies to school and give them to the school cafeteria and pass them for hamburgers. You know, and at that time I thought he was counterfeiting dimes. That's what I thought. But turns out he was just a man ahead of his time, because a year later, as I said, Johnson removed the silver backing from money. And interesting enough, President Johnson had this to say at the time: "If anybody has any idea of hoarding our silver coins, let me say this. Treasury has a lot of silver on hand, and it can be, and it will be, used to keep the price of silver in line with its value in our present silver coin. There will be no profit in holding them out of circulation for the value of their silver content." So, the final death knell for the dollar was in 1971, Nixon closed the gold window, which means that the U.S. defaulted on its promise to other countries to redeem dollars for gold. Now, this brings me back to my original point, the value of gas. In 1965, the average price of a gallon of regular gas was 31 cents. One silver dollar would buy over 3 gallons of gas. Well, right now, a silver dollar is 90% silver. There's 0.77 troy ounce of silver. So a silver dollar today is worth approximately $22.43. One silver dollar will buy over 6 gallons of gas. So silver dollar in 1965, 3 gallons of gas. Silver dollar today, 6 gallons of gas. So, in conclusion, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Young Americans in particularly at least know nothing about the history of money. It's not taught in the government schools. And as a final thought, I'll leave you this question: has the price of gas really gone up, or are we witnessing the debasement of the U.S. dollar by the United States government? Thanks for watching.